All right, let's go ahead and do a live. So, this is kind of a weirder live than normal because it's not just me chit chatting. I figured I'm trying to collect data to do my next video, and I've just been slacking. I've been working on other stuff. I've been working on my audiobook, messing around with video games as usual. So I'm not focusing on collecting material for my next video. Those who are not familiar, the next video that I'm planning on doing is talking about the source and origin on words like pagan and heathen. I talked about this last week in my last live. But I have like a Word doc where, I'm putting some stuff together, and have some things that I want to say and I wanted to go through. But I want sources. I have a OneNote, and in my OneNote, I take quick notes. And on the term for pagan, I'm starting to put together some notes for the first time I've seen pagani used and paganus. And I've got some sources for that. So I need to dig a little bit further, and I need to get additional sources. Is basically just what I need to do. And I probably should do pagan/heathen on this because I want to grab the ones for heathen as well. Part of the problem that I'm having is not only am I having some of the sources for where these words were first used, but the theory of my theory from just logical stuff. Hey Jay Woodwolf, good to see you. Just the theory of the logical stuff of how information spread. I want to back that up. Like right now, it's just hearsay. Oh, back in medieval times, people lived in villages, so they didn't get outside information unless they traded. So when we started developing cities and roads to make trade easier, the information of the new religion, Christianity, spread into the cities and then filtered out into the woodland areas, the ruralistic people on farms and stuff, the peasants, as it were, the pagans, the country dwellers. And not all of them adapted or fully understood because they did not have the education of the city people. That's the theory. I think it's right. I don't have any written proof of it, and I would like to find some. And every time I go, I'm going to go find something, I go play a game instead. So I haven't been doing that. So I just thought doing a video and just tagging out, open chat, what you want to talk about while I'm looking things up might be kind of cool. And if not, then you're not going to sit around and hang out and talk about it anyway, so it doesn't really make sense, right? Okay. Trying to think of where I can go next. Let me grab the heathen stuff really quick, because I wanna take. So one of the things that I've been doing lately, as I've been playing around with, is there's this thing called Chat GPT. Don't trust it at all. But I ask it for sources, and then I go try to find the sources it suggests. So sometimes I do that. I'm just being transparent and clear. I don't want to misrepresent where some of the places I get my information from. Yeah, I've read books. I have tons of books. I don't know how accurate some of those books are. I've listened to other people and read things online. I cover this in all of my videos. I say it all the time. So it's not like I'm coming like I've got a professor, doctorate degree, and blah, blah, blah. I'm freaking reading and trying to find stuff. So back in my day, when it was just like local pagan shops and doing local pagan gatherings and things like that, to pick up information, a lot of that's hearsay. So now I need sources. I want sources. So etymology.com is another one I like to use because everyone knows that, and I've actually had some people comment on my videos that etymology apparently is not a really good source. So the way I understand heathen, the origin of it is from the Scandinavian word heathen, and heathen means one from the heath, which is basically the country. It's open land in Scandinavia. So I'm trying to grab some stuff on that right now. So etymology.com. Heathen. Old English. Interesting. Heathen, not Christian or Jewish. Also as a noun. heathen man, one of a race or nation which does not acknowledge the God of the Bible. Merge with the Old Norse, heathen, this is the one I know. Heathen, pagan, from Proto-Germanic, heathana, source also of Old Saxon, heathen, Old French, heathen as well, I don't know how to pronounce it in French, Dutch, heathen, Old High German, heiden, which is of uncertain origin. Perhaps literally, dweller on the heath, one inhabiting uncultivated land. That's the way I understood it. Historically assumed to be ultimately from the Gothic hathno, gentle heathen woman used by Ulfilas in the first translation of the Bible into a Germanic language. Interesting. Like other basic words for exclusively Christian ideas, it likely would have come first from Gothic and then spread to other Germanic languages. If so, it could be a noun use of an unrelated Gothic adjective. Compare Gothic hathi, dwelling on the heath, but a religious sense is not recorded for this. Whether native or Gothic, it might have been chosen on model of Latin paganus, with its root sense of rural. But that word appears relatively late in the religious sense, where the Germanic word might have been chosen for its resemblance to the Greek ethne, or it may be a literal borrowing of that Greek word, perhaps via Armenian hethanos. Balkan presents another theory. It most probably that the GMC word Havana referred to a person living on the heath on common land, a person of one's own community. It would then be a neutral word used by heathen people in order to refer to each other rather than a Christian negative word denoting non-Christians. And there's a reference here for the 1600s from heathen plus ism, heathenism specifically. Old English word for it included heatheness, heathendom, and a later ones were heathenship. Interesting. So let's ask ChatGTP some stuff. Let's see. How do I want to do this? It's all about the phrasing of the question to get information to look up more stuff, basically. Trying to get some ideas to do further digging. So, is there a record of the meaning of the Old Norse word heathen? Yes, the Old Norse word heathen has a well-documented meaning. Heathen is an adjective that is often translated as heathen or pagan in English. It was used to describe someone who followed the old pre-Christian Norse religion as opposed to being a Christian. The term is derived from the Proto-Germanic heidenes, which also means heathen. The word heathen and its derivatives were used in various Old Norse texts, including sagas and skald poetry, to denote those who adhered to the traditional polytheistic belief and practices of the Norse people before the worship adaptation of Christianity in Scandinavia. It was often used in contrast to terms for Christians or those who had converted to Christianity. The use of heathen in Old Norse literature provides insight into the cultural and religious shifts that occurred during the Viking Age and the early medieval period in the Nordic countries. Can you give me an example of its use with a source? Certainly, one of the classic examples of the use of the word heathen can be found in the Old Norse saga literature. Here's an example from Heimskringla. Okay, so we can look up Heimskringla. A collection of sagas about the Norwegian kings written by Snorri Sturluson in the 13th century. In the saga of Olaf Tryggvason, which is part of the Heimskringla, there's a passage where King Olaf, a Christian, confronts the pagan practices of his subjects. Oh, okay. So, attempting to read this. Olafur Konungur spurði hversu heathenir menn hefðu thought þátt að veturnotum. King Olaf asked how the heathen men had conducted that winter night. This passage illustrates the use of heathenir, the plural form of heathen, to describe the non-Christian or pagan individuals in the narrative. Interesting. Interesting. So now we look up Helmskringa. Probably there's a couple sources on reading some of the old sagas and stuff that I like to use, like sacred text, but it doesn't really give the translation to it. So I like to have the original as well. So I wonder if what was that? Voluspa.org has translations, but I don't know if it's just Voluspa or not on that website, because I usually can't always find all of it. No, this one's not going to help on this site. It's on my Voluspa.org. See, Voluspa has Alvamo, the Voluspa itself, the Poetic Edda. I don't think this has Helmskringa. I don't think it has that in this collection. Control F brings up a search, and sometimes you're able to type that in. Old Norse source for the Poetic Edda comes from Helmskringa. Okay, so this is sending me to a different site. See, this is that site that I was on. So Voluspa.org doesn't have it. I've never seen this one before. Helmskringa.no/wiki/4side. I don't know how good this site is, though. And that brings up a lot of questions, that in and of itself. Maybe I'll just go with the sacred text version, even though it doesn't show the Old Norse. Or how about I look up Helmskringa Old Norse with English translation and see if we can find. There's this Internet Archive thing here. Let's see what we got here. Internet Archive's a nice one for finding old books, which is sometimes nice, especially if you don't own a copy or translation or a reprinting of it. So I've got several reprintings of a lot of the stuff. I might have Helmskringa up there somewhere in one of my books. So this is, it looks like Alison Finley and Anthony Fawkes. Now I need to try to find the saga inside of here. That's the one that they mentioned, which doesn't look like it appears in this volume. Okay, there's 3 different volumes. Here it is. Olaf Saga Tryggvasonar. And this is on page 137. Let's see. Is there a way to jump forward to 137? Yeah, I can do it at the bottom here. 117, 131, 131, 137. Okay, so looks like it just has the translation in English. So what chapter did ChatGTP claim this was from? In the saga. I guess I could just look up Winter's Night then, because you can do a search here on Internet Archive as well. Page 15, page 11. So we know it has to be like up in the 130s, 140s. Sometimes I think when I do some of this research, I wonder if I'm looking for too much confirmation bias. You know what I mean? Like trying to look up to prove my... I mean, I guess technically that's what I'm doing, because I'm trying to see if I can find supporting evidence to the theories that I have, or things that I remember reading about or hearing about previously. I mean, it's kind of interesting when you start digging into stuff like this. I mean, I like reading and learning all the time, but trying to find trustworthy sources tends to be challenging. And as technology has improved, we're finding more and more of the original sources that we thought were good ends up being crap. It's not here either. During the winter night. He went during the winter. No, it's not that section. Winter. He kept a large number of men with him during the winter. No, winter's night. That's page 150. Would be in this section, though. Spring, the first winter that Hakan... Here we go, around this section. Told us last, no, 145, 143. Day, night, ever since. It's not looking for winter and night separately, because I'm looking for winter's night based upon the translation that they suggested. So I'm on page 142 now here. Jarl Hakan Sigurdsson stayed with Haraldr Gormsson, king of the Danes, the following winter after he had fled from Norway. But that's not what I'm trying to find. Now it's coming back to page 138, which I think is too far back. Oh, cool. It highlights it over here in the chapter. Should have looked through that. All right. Let's see. Winter followed. Sun, not winter. Winter. Night remained. Night called. Okay. Third night. Chapter 5, chapter 6, 7, 8. Winter during the night. Nope, not there either. But he told him winter. Chapter 14 now. So far I'm not... Oh, okay. Stayed... Nope. First winter that Hakan ruled it. That's not the one. During the winter. Chapter 18. Following winter. For him, winter, and give the following. Winter discuss. And in the winter he wanted. Nope. Still in the same saga. We're up to chapter 33 now, so we are going past the 160s, now the 170s. Just checking chat. Yeah, still going. To the battlefield, chapter 43. Night, when night came. We were born of the same night, says the Jarl, and when winter came, now we're in chapter 50, the first winter. Beware, Vik, chapter. Okay, here's a lot of winters on this page, and now we're on page 192. Beginning of winter, that winter. That same winter, all of it, no. Third winter, spoken in the winter. Same night logged into. Everyone slept in peace. It's a pretty long saga. Following winter, love came back from Hologun. Winter with all of Christianity stayed. Winter, spring, winter in Sweden. Still in the same saga. Okay, that's good. Tempted to look up the word heathen. See if that gets to that passage. Would really prefer to see it in both, like I said. Nope, see, it's not here. And now we're on the next saga. All All right, so maybe they don't translate it as Winter's Night. Let's look up the word heathen. But because that country was all heathen, let's flip through it on this side instead of looking through the search results. Because at least flipping through the saga, I can see where it might have mentioned the word heathen. That she should want to be given in marriage to a heathen king while among heathen people. So there's mentions of the word here in the saga, but without seeing the original translation, I don't think this is going to do me much help. I need a source that really shows it side by side. So there's definitely mentions of the word heathen, at least in a translated version, in Hemskringla, but I want both, darn it. You can always check out Britannica.com too. Okay, this is Gutenberg.org. Pretty sure this was a college, but is it going to show side by side? That's my question. Khan the Good Saga. Saga of the King. King Olaf. Here we go. Here's King Olaf Saga down here. And just has the English translation again. Darn it. Lot of mentions of heathens throughout the entirety of the saga, but I want to see the old. I'm saying Old Norse. That's probably why I can't find it, because it's Old Icelandic. Because if Snorri Sturluson wrote it, then it would be Old Icelandic, not Old Norse. Taking me back to the Gutenberg project as well. Could also just try to find it in Old Icelandic myself and then try to do a translation on it as well. I can look up the word heathen to see if it's written in there. See, it's taking me back to that one website. Again here, I guess this is supposed to be a decent source, I guess. I need to find more about this. Hemskringla.no. Hemskringla is the largest collection of Old Norse and Nordic source text on the internet. Currently more than 7,500 titles. Yeah, that helps, but apparently it shows it in Norwegian in this collection. Text and Icelandic. That might be promising. Choose the language. This text available in the following languages. So yeah, Icelandic. So now I just need to find the specific text that I'm looking for, which is always frustrating in and of itself, especially when you're not fluent in a language. Although I did find a really cool camera translation app, which could help with some of this, I suppose. Let's see. Actually, this one part stands out here, even though it's not a clickable link. It actually says heathen sider á Íslandi. Heathen custom in Iceland. But that's not clickable. Hello, Fidista. Good to see you. Greetings from Southwest Florida. How's Florida today? Hopefully no real bad weather. Hopefully everything's smooth and nice going on out there. Trying to dig out some sources, and I thought it'd be cool to talk about it while I'm actually digging through sources. So I guess this is just like a list. See, I wonder if I can search up here if I can try to find. Here we go. Saga Olafsson. There we go. But it doesn't have it in Icelandic. So what version is this? Because there's always these translations. Trying to find original writings is frustrating. Okay, so this section here is supposed to be in Old Norse. Did Snorri Sturluson write in Old Norse? That's interesting. Okay, so I might have found it. I might have found a good spot. So what is this detected from? Icelandic. Ha ha, found one. Cool. So now we just need to find heathen in this entire list here. So here is one of the sources in question. Dusty Dud, good to see you. How are you today? Just some rain on and off, then heat. Doing a lot of food forest planting. Hope all is well there. Yeah, not too bad. Things are going pretty good. Pretty hot here, like really hot. It's like, I don't know, like heat advisory, stay inside type of hot. And keep slacking on preparing for my next video, so I just figured I would do a live because obviously a lot of you, actually every single person who showed up so far regularly interacts with my videos and my lives, so I figured, I might as well have one, right? Might as well have another live as I prepare for my next video and stuff. So what I'm trying to do here is find sources to support a theory I have, and one of them is trying to like find some definitions, because a lot of people use these different terms all the time, and I don't know if people are necessarily using them right. Not to say that I'm using them right, but I'm not sure they are. Why is heathen not on this page? It's Icelandic. It should be on this page. Seriously. No, Heatha is on here. Heathna. Heathner. Ah! Sauer Heathner. Men huvdu. Lengi á truat sagði at Óðinn skildi þá engu. Yeah. I can pick up a couple of those words, but I need a translator. I will be fluent one day. Mark my words. All right. So, the one whom the pagans had trusted for a long time said that Odin would never come to betray them. So they're translating heathenir, which does exist here in this saga, as pagans instead of heathens. That's interesting. Now what if I just, and this of course Google Translate, it's not the best translator, but it's free. Yeah, heathenir, it's saying it's pagans, which is interesting because if you switch it and go from English pagans to Icelandic, which is probably modern Icelandic, it has heathingya. Yeah. I can kind of read it, just not always pronouncing it properly. That's interesting. Okay, so this I'm going to grab this as an example that I'll bring up in the video that I do. It's interesting that they translate it to pagans. See, I usually get annoyed when people are like, I'm a Norse pagan. And it's like, yeah, but pagan comes from a Latin word. Why wouldn't you use heathen, which comes from an old Icelandic word or an old Norse word with the heathen thing? But apparently a lot of people took heathener and translated that as, yeah, here's another spot. Ok varu heathener. Let's see. Oh, wow, there's a lot going on here. Enner konungi varsat. But she said, I think. Let's see how bad my Icelandic is. But when the king, oh, konung, see, I thought that might have been woman. Apparently that's king. But when the king was told, so not said, but told, varsagt, at thar varu kominir nykere, men hauliskir ok varu heathener. But when the king was told that some arrogant men had come there and were heathens. See, here translates it to heathens instead of pagan. That's interesting. This is the problem with translations. This is why I also love some of this stuff. Heathen, and it's plural, heathener, because it's been heathener in quite a few of these. It gets translated both ways, apparently. So I guess all the people saying they're Norse pagans. See, I don't even know if you can call yourself a Norse pagan because we don't know what they did during the Norse time period. Like, we got little bits and pieces, but it's kind of like secondhand accounts of it. That's plural. Heathener gets translated as both pagans and heathens, depending on the source. Such as, those who are not familiar, the term saga just means story. That I do know. Such as Saga Olafs Tryggvarsonur, which means son of Tryggva. Tryggvarsonur, son of Tryggva. And Sonur is kind of like an older one that you see in Old Norse. Like in modern day Icelandic, it's you take the genitive version of the name and then you add son or daughter onto the end, but in Old Norse it would be Sonur. You see this in the sons of Ivaldi's sons. It's like Ivaldi Sonur instead of Ivaldi son, or whatever the genitive version of Ivaldi is. Rough heat in the northern states. Hope it does not continue. Right. What is the difference between pagan and heathen besides the origin? Is heathen a broader term and pagan about country people? That's what I'm trying to dig into. So the way I understand it is it's a regional dialect that refers similarly. So as an example, I was pulling up earlier etymology, right? I like etymology.com. Some people don't like this as a source. The way I've understand the word heathen, heathen derives from the term heathen. Heathener would be heathens. It refers to someone from the heath. Heath is like the uncultivated land out in the country. So yeah, it's like a country dweller. But it's Scandinavian versus pagani and paganos, which is Latin. So talking about over there by Rome, now Italy. So there's the Italian root word that turns into the modern word pagan. And then there is the Scandinavian root word, which I was under the impression turns into the modern word heathen. But according to some of these translations, and I don't just mean Google Translate, but looking at some of the translations, like one of the things I was looking up is Hemskringla on Gutenberg. So Gutenberg translates a lot of it into heathen as well. But then there's other sources here that are translating it into pagan. So it just depends on the person that you ask. But the essence of it is what region it comes from. Pagani and Paganus, Latin. Heathen, heathener, Scandinavia. And when I say Scandinavia, the Old Norse language, depending on the region it kind of evolved and changed into Old Icelandic is apparently the closest. But we have modern Icelandic, Norwegian, Swedish, and Danish. All of those are Scandinavian languages that are built out of Old Norse. So, yeah, depends on who's using it, I guess. And that's what I'm trying to dig into. I want to confirm my thoughts on it. So heathen basically means someone from the heath, undeveloped land. Pagan means someone from a realistic countryside. Both of them are in essence like saying that someone is someone who lives out in the sticks, basically. Someone who lives out in the country. That's basically what it's referring to. And the way that I understand it, and this is what I want to cover in my next... I'm sorry, Dusty Dud, you said, Blaze, do you mind if I ask where you're from? Just curious, I guess in Wisconsin for some reason. Pagan Coffee Talk, howdy. Howdy, good to see you. I don't like sharing where I'm from. I will say that I am from the eastern side of the United States. Vaguely. Northeastern side. That's the best I'll do for location-wise. I get weird just because it's like... people online for some reason have a problem if you're not Christian. People in general seem to have a problem when you're not Christian. The vast majority of people don't give a shit. And the vast majority of people don't know who I am. But I actually have someone who's like slandering my name just because I'm into this stuff and has basically like a hit list with my photo and a description of me apparently doing acts that I don't do because they're trying to make claims. Well, this person claims that they're study druids and druids are sacrifice kids and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, I don't sacrifice anyone. What the hell are you talking about? Neo-Druidry has nothing to do with the past. And yes, tribal customs and cultures around the world, including original Christianity, did sacrifice. There were human sacrifices. We have evidence of this in many of the cultures. I mean, like, even in Christianity, they say, you know, Jesus Christ, he was sacrificed. He was the Lamb of God, the ultimate sacrifice that ended all the other sacrifices. We have accounts in the Bible of people sacrificing animals. Sacrifice is a part of human culture, but it is one of the past. So to suggest somebody today is still sacrificing humans or animals, no, that's like a crime. So I don't know. I almost like, I don't know the proper way to go about legal action because I almost want to sue him for slander, like, you know, just libel, straight up false accusations, because that is an accusation of an actual crime. So yeah, because of that, I get kind of a little weirded out about sharing too much specific detail, although I guess anybody who actually wanted to put forth the effort would not have a hard time finding anyone online. I just don't want to make it easier. So anyway, yeah, Northeastern U.S. That was a rabbit hole. I'm so sorry. Let me. Any other questions? I figured it would be nice to chat. Like I said, while I do my research. Hopefully that answers your question, Fidista, and thus, again, trying to copy or trying to research for the next topic from a next video, which is going to be the terms pagan and heathen, because I do get into debates and discussion with people. Like, there's a lot of different names for the revival reconstruction of the Scandinavian practices, and they are revival reconstructions to a degree. Most of the stuff that is done in Scandinavia is ingrained with the culture, and we see this. And here's the thing. Me knowing this information, I don't know if I know it. I could be wrong. So I'm trying to look up sources to support theories and things I've read about. So if you look at Iceland, and this I do know about from firsthand experience because I literally have family in Iceland and I talk to them. My grandma, Icelander, all the way. My mom was born there. I've said this many times, like literally it's there. And looking at YouTube videos of interviews of speaking with people in Iceland as well, and talking with them through Discord and doing my practice when I'm practicing my Icelandic. You know, ég tala bara smólves íslensku, en ég tala ekki vel. I'm trying to develop some fluency at some point, and I'm talking to native Icelanders because they're the best to study with. Anyway, the way that they seem to do it is it's ingrained in their society. You can even see this if you look back to the word Gothi. Gothi refers to a regional ruler of an area of land. In Iceland, Gothi were and are, well, they're no longer part of the Althing. The Althing is like a gathering like of parliament. It's like a ruling leaders of the country get together and make big decisions. Just like in the United States, you have the Senate. And the Althing, a lot of people have heard this from the sagas. They think it doesn't exist anymore. It does. Like literally today in Iceland, they still call it the Althing. The difference is, instead of the Gothi and the Gothar collecting there, right? The Gothar collecting for the Althing, they now call them Thingmen, which is a man of the Althing, which is a sitting or a gathering, basically. But the term Gothi itself, these individuals, the Gothar, which is plural, the Gothi is an individual. An individual Gothi was responsible for their region of land, how their people were, and including their spiritual well-being back in Old Norse Viking Age time periods. And this wasn't just in Iceland. Iceland's a settlement. There's, other regions as well in Scandinavia. But specifically in Iceland, they were responsible for everything, including the way that the Hof or temple and stuff was run. So it was ingrained in society. Like a lot of us today think of, church as separate. And I mean, even in America, we say separation of church and state. So when I'm looking into this type of stuff, you have to look through it from a cultural lens. So if you want to look at Reconstruction, if you look at the regions and the cultures today, you see bits and pieces of the past that stay with the culture. When people convert, you can see the way people do Christianity. Look at the way that people do Christianity over in Israel, or look at the way that they do it in England versus Ireland versus America versus Iceland. Every region is going to have their own twist to it because of the cultural influences. People don't give up their culture. They adapt their culture to make the new thing fit. So the way that I understand it, if you were basically trying to talk about Scandinavian Reconstruction, looking at the cultures is going to be the best way to try to tap into it, because those cultures kept a lot of those traditions alive, including in Iceland having certain days that coincide with some of the holy days from the sagas, including names of certain deities and daily lives and or sayings that they have, because again, it's ingrained in their culture. So when someone says Norse pagan, I hear people taking two cultures and blending them together. Apparently, according to a lot of this translation stuff, since we're speaking English, a lot of these words that technically can get translated into heathen appears to be also translated into pagan. I actually have a list of some of the different words for and I've covered this in other videos before, but just as a reminder, Ausatru, Asatru, yes, two different things. Odinism, Vanatru, Disatru, Forn Sither, old custom or old way. Forn Sith, old custom. Heathen Sith, which is heathen custom. Heathen. Forn said, Fjern Sithu, Erminism, Norse paganism, Norse heathenism, Germanic paganism, Germanic heathenism, heathenry, and paganism. And some of those are kind of broad term and broad spectrums. And then some people might be like, what's the difference between Germanic and Norse? Technically, Norse refers to Norwegian. Also refers to northern people. The Germanic tribes, Germanic, quote unquote, pagan heathenism stuff is technically older than the Old Norse stuff, because as I understand it, the Germanic tribes migrated north, and the religious spiritual practices between the Germanic tribes and the Scandinavian regions were very close. That's why you have in some of the Germanic traditions, you have Woden. Apparently you don't pronounce it with a V like you do in modern German. So it's not Woden, it's Woden. Woden apparently is either the same or very close to Odin, which would be the Old Norse deity that we call Odin today. They're described as being similar. They both have one eye, like very, very big similarities between the Germanic and Norse pantheon. Norse is a term we started using today to refer to a specific region of the northern Germanic tribes. So that breakaway is something we do today. They didn't call themselves Norse back then. So using the term Norse pagan, to me, I'm always like, why don't you just call it heathen? Apparently, there's more support in them calling themselves Norse pagan than I realized. But that's why I like to look this stuff up and either reconfirm and find sources that support what I believe or teach me something new. One thing I do not get on the board with is when people call themselves a Asatru. Asatru is the practice. It's like people who practice Wicca, instead of calling themselves a Wiccan, call themselves, I am Wicca. What? Maybe that's a different theory and process. Like in Iceland, people who follow Asatru call themselves Asatruimen, not I am Asatru. Apparently that's a big thing. That's rubs me the wrong way too. But again, people don't need to look for my approval to do their own practice. That will not change my quest to seek knowledge, though, and try to share what I learn. Pagan seems more like it's referencing a culture, and heathen more behavior, at least in American English. I understand, no problem. I was way off. Yeah, no problem. No problem at all. This is a photograph from, places I've been to. I took that photograph myself. See, having that photograph alone, I'm sure some sort of AI can pinpoint the exact location and could probably center in on like a handful of states that I might be near. And that's the reality of the internet. So I've been enjoying your lives. I like how you explain magic with a more science view. It makes more sense to me that way. Yeah, Pagan Coffee Talk's got some really good videos. They reached out to me at one time and said, hey, can you review our video? And I did. Brutally and honestly, I was blunt. Hopefully it wasn't offensive, but it's my opinion, and you asked for it. But they've got good stuff, so I've watched quite a few of their things. They also have a Discord, too, so nice interactive group. I like having groups to interact with. That's one of the reasons why I like lives. I like the back-and-forth conversation. Even though it's great to just hear me talk about things that I've researched and looked up, sometimes it's nice to share those notes with others and to debate back and forth. All right. Got off topic there for a second. So heathen. All right. Read on etymology. Was it .com or .org? It is .com. I read on etymologyonline.com or etymol online? Yeah. Etym online. That heathen meant one from the heath. Is there other sources to support this? One of the things that I've been doing lately is I ran across ChatGTP, and I've been asking it questions to give me search criteria to look up and confirm. Don't trust ChatGPT. It can be wrong. It's great, though, to ask questions, though, and get references and then go confirm those references. So that's what I've been doing. The idea that the Old Norse word heathen might have meant one from the heath is a folk etymology, but there are other interpretations and sources that provide a more nuanced understanding of the term. While Et Online suggests that heathen might be related to heath or heathen, scholarly sources provide a broader and more detailed analysis. Chelsby and Vigfússon's An Icelandic English Dictionary. Go look that up really quick. Oh, and it's in the Internet Archive, too. An English dictionary based on the collections of the late Clesby Engel and completed by Gudbrand Vigfusson with an intro and life of Richard Closby by George Webb. So here's the dictionary. Oh, this is kind of cool looking. Hold on. Let me look up the word heathen on this dictionary, and then I'll go back to whatever ChatGTP said. That's what I do, is like, if it gives me titles or something to look at. Let's see if it has heathen listed in here at all. There's a search on Internet Archive on the left-hand side, which I think is pretty neat. So on page 13, and I can click it and jump to that page. Ooh, that is difficult to read. Let's use the zoom. All right. What have we got here? I'll look at chat in a section. Oh, this says all heathen. Altogether heathen. Landet. Nair. Hunder. Oth. Avi. The land was utterly heathen, near 100. 120, but that's all heathen. I don't want all heathen, I just want heathen. What do we got? Here we go. Heathen. This is actually a good source. I like this. When was this written? I'm gonna have to look up these individuals. Man, this is like from... So Clesby, Richard Clesby, 1797 to 1847. Oh, it's Guth, even though it says good. Guthbrander Vigfusson, 1827 to 1889. Interesting. And this publication was from 1874. It's the Old Norse Language Dictionary. I'll post a link to this in case anybody else is interested. I like to share sources. There you go. I'll probably be using this in my upcoming video too. Heathen, adjective. Mighty. This word is probably derived not from heather, a heath, but from... I don't even know what that is. As used in the NT. Let me zoom in a little bit more. My eyes are getting bad as I get older. In a single passage of Mark 7, it is even possible that the Paganus, which according to Du Cange only appears after AD 365, may be merely a translation of the Teutonic word under the notion that heathen was derived from hathi, a heath, open country. And in Latin, that's pagus. Then as hathi was pronounced much like whatever this is, the true etymology of heathen was lost. And so the long vowel and the aspired initial may be accounted for. To the worshippers of Thor and Odin, the name heathen was unknown. Christians were the first that used the word, and we met with it first in HKM of Eyvind, who speaks of heathen god. Oh, I'm sorry. Heathen Goth, heathen gods. Heathen Staller, a heathen altar. By Christny S. by the missionary Thorvald, A.D. 982. A.D. is a Christian term for CE. CE means common era, like right now we're in 2024 A.D. or CE. A.D. is actually Latin. It means Anno Domini, or Year of Our Lord. So a lot of people like BC, before Christ. What does A.D. mean? Some people think it's after death. No, it's actually Anno Domini. It's Latin. Now, people who are in the scientific field or who are not Christian will say BCE, before Common Era, and CE, Common Era. So, and those are the terms I use, but it says AD, that's what it means. It is also used by Halfred and Sigvat, heathen, domer, heathendom. Sigvat, heathnar, which is, heathens, right? Stjorner, heathen stars, sol. The verse in is second 50 is spurus, as are all the verses of that saga. so also the verse in Land 84 and in Beg Bjol Thatir, where the word heathen is put into the mouth of a ghost and a giant in the songs which are merely a poetical fiction of later times. The word heathengi for wolf is curious. Probably it is merely a metaphor, phrase from heathen genitals, and if so, it gives an additional evidence to the age of the poem Ot Kvetha, which poem from its nickname Greenlandish cannot be older than the discovery of Greenland. Interesting. Interesting. This opens up a whole new group of possibilities here. So that possibility of it meaning one from the heath might not even be true. And they would not have called themselves heathens back then at all. Christians used it first, which I've actually heard that theory before, that Christians have used the word heathen before those who would be called heathen would have used it. Interesting. Gives me some new perspective. So I'm going to screenshot this. And then I'm going to take a link clip, and I'm going to use this in my video because this is fascinating stuff. Definitely awesome stuff. So I'm going to... We're sorry we couldn't paste it from the clipboard. Why couldn't you paste it from the clipboard? I said copy. There we go. Okay, let me go to the end of this. And then we're also going to take this from Internet Archive. And then we're going to go and grab the source of this as well. Publication date. That's interesting. I had no idea. Again, this is why I like to look things up. I was under the impression for the longest time of information, and then I find stuff that counters that information from a source from the 1800s. And this publisher was Oxford Clarendon Press, so I don't know contributors from University of Toronto. Not that a university necessarily make things more accurate, but it's interesting to find opposing point of views. You know what I mean? Like I don't know. I think it's important to look up stuff like this. So all right, what else did it say here? So this authoritative dictionary on Old Norse language states that heathen is the Old Norse word for heathen or pagan. The dictionary does not specifically link it to heath, but rather emphasizes its use to denote non-Christians in the Norse cultural context. Ordbok over det Norrøne Prosprog, Dictionary of Old Norse Prose. This dictionary of Old Norse prose confirms the meaning of heathen as heathen or pagan. It provides examples from various old texts where the term is used to describe non-Christian beliefs and practices. All right, let's see if we can find this one online too. What else have y'all been up to? Darn it. I got to log in to borrow it from Internet Archive. It's not free on the archive. Publication was from 1989. So it is an Old Norse it is an Old Norse book, but it's a more recent printing and production, so Dictionary of Old Norse Pro. Most of readers go to the app. Yeah, but it's not readable on that site. Of course it's not. So I can't get on that source to confirm it or not confirm it because it is limited. Is it on this publication site? No. Just the citing information for it, but not the actual details of it. That would be an interesting book to get a hold of one of these days for sure. If Christians use the term heathen, was it meant more for a pejorative? Otherwise, why wouldn't Christians use a word already in use? I don't know. I don't have an answer for that. I think we could theorize. I mean, I know it seemed from at least previous readings and stuff that it was a big deal for people to, especially Christians, to denote those who are not Christian, like call them out, like, oh, those are not Christians, those are heathens, those are pagans, as an insult because they haven't found God. So you're either Christian or you're something that's not. So I guess, like I said, I think it's mostly like terms like heathen. I think it's regional based. That's why, for me at least, I try to tie in the cultural stuff to the practice. Not that everyone has to do that. That's just always been my mindset. Academic sources on Germanic linguistics. Scholars like Jan de Vries, in his work on Germanic etymology, suggest that the word heathen is derived from Proto-Germanic heidenis, which also means heathen. This interpretation aligns with the broader Germanic use of a similar term. So basically, it's just someone who's not Christian is basically what it comes down to. It's not about the heath thing, which is fine. Dictionary of Old Norse Prose. Definition of heathen without specifically linking it to heath. So again, the link to heath likely stems from the idea that heathen practices were associated with rural or wilderness areas as opposed to the settled urban areas where Christianity often took hold first. However, this connection is more interpretive and less direct in terms of linguistic derivation. In summary, while the notion that heathen might mean one from the heath can be found in some interpretations, authoritative linguistic historical sources primarily defined it as heathen or pagan, referring to non-Christian religious practices. Interesting. So does this not allow the manuscript so I can actually see this? Got to be able to find it here on this page. Why can I not find it? Oh, here it is. 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 Whew. He even has heathen thither. Interesting. No man shall live in a house, stick a pedestal, or not have a good thing, but he also learned that he know or true, then he is outcasted and unhealthy, though he is a man of high standards. Interesting. Another was, after Christianity, the great evil remnants of pagan customs. Pagan customs, yeah, so this Google translates it as pagan customs as well. So this is another one of the sources that was there. That's what it seems like, a way to designate the non-Christian in a negative way. Heathen still has a negative vibe in modern times. Does it? So you're not the only person, Fadista, who I've heard suggest that heathen today is used in a very negative way. I've not seen that so much. But then again, maybe I just don't talk to enough people who are into the Scandinavian stuff. See, when I was younger, Wicca and witchcraft and some of the stuff that was just like Western Europe type of paganism practices, those are the big ones. And a lot of them are based on Christian practices, which they don't want you to, they don't want to admit that. They were like, no, it doesn't. Just like they don't want to admit there were sacrifices back in ancient pagan cultures, both human and animal. But when I was interested in a lot of the Icelandic stuff, I couldn't find anything. I mean, you could find the sagas and stories and stuff, but you had stuff like Flowers and Anthony Folks and stuff like that, were individuals who wrote on that, and you don't know how good those sources are. And now that we know later, they're not good sources. And then you had people like McNullen? Yeah, Stephen McNullen, which a lot of people don't care for. So here's another source. I want to put some of this stuff down. I think the reason I don't necessarily see it so much as being negative is it's referring to non-Christian practices of a Scandinavian region. Like today, people in those regions, that speak those languages are going to have words that are like, let me give you an example. Iceland, all right? If I type in the word pagan in English, in Icelandic today, there is no word pagan in Icelandic. It's heathen, which can translate as pagan or heathen. I don't know about other languages, so I don't know how trustworthy they are. But if I go to Norwegian, pagan translates into hedensk, which again, close to the word heathen. What else do we have over there? Let's look at Danish. Again, I don't speak Danish, so I don't know how accurate this would be. Wow. Same word.
Hedensk.
Pronounced differently, but same word. Danish, Norwegian, Swedish.
Hednisk.
So all three of the words, Danish, Norwegian, and Swedish, are very similar. Icelandic is an outliner, but Icelandic also seems to be closer to the Old Norse word. So yeah, that's why I don't necessarily consider it to be a negative thing. It has a negative feel, but not as much as years ago. Now, pagans are reclaiming some words like this, such as witch, also, to be redefined as positive. It is used as wild, immoral. Oh, I see what you're saying. I mean, I guess my counterpoint to that is, yeah, I would agree with you. Heathen has been a negative word. It was used derogatorily by Christians for individuals in those regions who are not Christian. But the same can be said for pagan. Pagan was used in the exact same fashion as the word heathen was, just in the Western countries. So UK, Ireland, Scotland, I don't know about Germany. Probably Germany too. Germany probably was heathen, but it's like a lot of those regions around where a lot of the modern practices that started flourishing again from the big Wicca boom of the 90s and the witch boom of the 90s and early 50s, that was always negative and bad too, just like the term heathen. So I guess if you're going to use a negative term, why choose one over the other? One reason could be pagan is more widely known. Another could be part of the reclaim movement that you're saying, where people are reclaiming old terms and reusing them. More people have reused and reclaimed the term pagan to make it significantly different than reclaiming the term heathen, maybe. I don't know. I don't have an answer for you on that. In my opinion, I don't see much difference from using the term pagan or heathen other than to be regionally based. I honestly prefer to use the term folk customs over saying pagan or heathen, but that's me personally. But if I'm saying heathen, I'm referring to Scandinavian regions. Like, I'm not even referring to Germanic. If it's a spirituality based from Norwegian, Swedish, or Danish, I consider that heathen, personally. If it is a tradition from Italy, maybe even Ireland and Scotland and England, maybe, pagan. But that's just me. I don't know. I don't see the point in labels too much anymore. I know I've covered that in a couple of my videos. I'm kind of getting away from them because it's like there's no connection, or there's not much of a connection. The way pagans practice and believe, like sometimes there's some universally accepted philosophies, principles, and beliefs, but they seem to vary so much from person to person and group to group. Or Anglo-Christian areas, Puritans, etc. Personally, I would call myself a pagan, but not a heathen just because of the American feel of it. That's fair. I don't like either of the terms. I don't use either for myself. Most of the stuff that I first got introduced to, when, like 5 years ago even, right? Or not saying I was introduced to, but 5 years ago, as I was comfortable with being called a pagan, but I was just as comfortable being called heathen. Go back to when I was like 18. So many years ago. When I was 18, I was very comfortable with the term pagan, and I used it regularly. In my 20s, I used the term pagan on a regular basis, but most of the sources and material I had introduced it as pagan. Also, they introduced some of the practices and traditions that were more centered around that Western Europe feel. Some of the, like you're saying, some of the Anglo-Saxon regions, that was the popular stuff. That's what everyone was writing about. Now, little did we know it was all coming from Christian sources and Hermeticism and things like that. But we didn't know at the time. All we had to go off of is what we were told and what we discussed in the books that we read. So we didn't have a lot to go off of back then. Unless you had family traditions, and even the family traditions are so subtle that's like they fit right in with normal Christian traditions, so you can't really pick those out easily. I don't know. I don't know. But this is why I'm picking this as a topic for my next video. I just want to cross a couple of my T's, dot some of my I's, and get some of my sources in order. Because again, I'm under certain impressions, like that term, it's, someone from the heath, but I don't know, that might not be true. I've got to dig into this a little bit more, but it seems like that is just hearsay. Someone from the heath. There's no proof of that being a definition for the word heathen. Heathen just means heathen. It means non-Christian. And it was, again, one of these sources specifically states that it was originally used by Christians to say you are not Christian in the Scandinavian regions. So that's interesting to note that. I think the same can be said for pagan, though. Like, I did write down a couple of the pagan ones. These were a little bit easier to find. So, Paganus, right? So, Paganus, the city of God by St. Augustine in 426 CE. The translation goes and translates into, nor do those deserve to be called pagans who live in the country, but those are so styled who desert the worship of the true God, to whom the sacred buildings and rites and sacrifices belong, and adopt noxious rites and sacrifices of their own. Paganus means rustic, whence we call those who live in the country pagans. So, and in Latin, which I can't read, unde et pagani apud nas decunter quae aggresse est et rustic appellantur. Paganus means rustic, whence we call those who live in the country pagans. That was the attempt at reading the Latin version of that. So this quite literally has people using the term and saying it does mean country dweller. But I have not found that for heathen yet. Everything's talking about, oh, these people who do this stuff, these heathens that do this stuff, these heathens write these heathen rituals, but not tying it into the way the term pagan is. But at the same time, pagan and heathen kind of were used side by side. So I don't know. I feel like I got it. This is why we don't have a video yet. It's 2 or 3 weeks, and this is why I keep taking breaks to play games. There's too much out there, and I think there's too much assumptions and false information. And then there's this other, for Pagani, there's these writings that I have for Tertullian writings written in cartilage in the summer of autumn 197 CE. And then I got a couple references here, including one on the archive that talks about the term Pagani. And it's just, I don't know, it's interesting. Did I not spell Pagani right? Probably not. It's fine. I'll do that later. Now that I've been streaming for an hour talking about my research, or attempts thereof, this is what I'm calling research. So before I wrap this up and go have lunch, my birds. No, I gotta uncover the birds too. Gotta uncover the birds. Go eat lunch. Any final thoughts or questions on these topics? Let's chat. And if not, no big deal. No big deal. And I know there's a little bit of a lag in the stream, which is weird because my upload speed is much faster. I wonder if James Frazier, Golden Bough, or Robert Graves, White Goddess, might have some insight. Tige both seem to have the scholarly angle. Yeah, I'm not sure either. It would be interesting to be able to talk to them, though. I'm not familiar with James Frazier. I'll have to look that up. I do know Robert Graves' poem. I know he also wasn't pagan, but that White Goddess that he wrote, apparently a lot of people theorize it helped kick the modern pagan movement. The idea of worshiping a goddess really appealed to people. I mean, if you think about it, like culturally speaking, like I said, we've never given up the goddess. We see it in, Mother Mary. In Christianity, we see it in the saints, like Saint Brigid, who more than likely, Bridget is the old Tuatha goddess. People are interesting and people are fascinating. That's the more I learn, the more I realize that none of us know what we're doing. We're just trying to connect with something. And that's why I'm looking more for the connection and less focusing on the this or that. It doesn't change the fact that I don't want to quest for the knowledge of what this or that means and where it might have originally came from and how it was used. Because I think we can draw inspiration from the past. It's also nice to clarify things and clean things up. Not just say it because everyone says it. But on that note, I'm going to pause my note-taking here for now and my live. So thank you. As always, nice to see you, Fadista. Always like the questions that you bring up. Good conversations. And thank you, everyone else who swung by. I don't know if you're all still here, but Jay Woodwolf, if you're here, thanks for swinging by. The Dusty Dud. Who else did we have visit today? Pagan Coffee Talk. So, yep. Catch y'all next time if you're watching this after the live. I do try to do weekly lives. I've moved away from doing them. We'll see if I can get back to doing them. And hopefully I will eventually at some point have a pagan versus heathen video coming out to have you speak about, talk about some of the things that I did find and discover with backup instead of just assumptions. So hopefully it'll help you make a decision what feels right for you. Nobody can tell you what to call yourself or what you should do or what you should be comfortable with. You need to find it for yourself. But having the additional details and information of where it might have come from and if it's something you truly want to associate with might be helpful in your own journey. And if it's not, okay, thanks for watching anyway. And if it is, you're welcome for that little bit of assistance. Catch you later.